Well, good evening, IFL Nation, and welcome back to the lab, your weekly source for the rundown of all things Indoor Football League. Whether you're here for the recap of the week that was, the preview of the week that is to come, or are interested in any other of the great goings on in this amazing league, you have come to the right place. It is the final day of April in the year of our Lord 2026, which means now is a good time as ever to put through another episode of Wager Wednesday in the Indoor Football League. Really appreciate all of you hopping on and learning a little bit more about this great league. For those of you who are new to either this game or the YouTube channel, I want to warmly welcome you aboard. My name is Alex Schuberth. I am a huge fan of the indoor football game, a passion that I've channeled into my current role as lead IFL contributor for a site called Sports Coast to Coast, which is a Pacific Northwest-based sports forum site, which specializes specifically in coverage of the Indoor Football League and its 14-member team specifically. Whether you're looking for league history, team rosters, game previews, game recaps, any other source of analysis that you can think of, Sports Coast to Coast has it with great, passionate staff that really, truly loves the game. So if you call yourself a fan of the Indoor Football League, Sports Coast to Coast is a must-go-to spot to really enrich your fandom there. I've attached the link for the site in the description below. There you will also find the written version of my Wager Wednesday piece, which I published about midday yesterday. So if you're maybe not a video person and you like to read, that's exactly for you. So let's get right into it here. We approach week 8 of the 2026 season after we've had a few straight full 7-game slates to really enhance our understanding of where these 14 teams currently stand, what they need to do in order to get to that next level, and maybe what they need to do in order to sustain their current level of dominance, especially for the upper echelon teams that have established themselves in that category at this point. But we're chugging right along with the season here, so let's get to it. All right. Week 7 was an incredible week in the Indoor Football League, as is most weeks in the circuit. We had one game on Friday, 4 games on Saturday, and a couple games on Sunday. And these featured quite about everything. We had shootouts. We had games decided by 1 point. We had one team get their first win of the season. So we will go through each of those 7 games in a pretty much full recap style. We'll take those 7 games, add them up to our year-to-date results so far, and look at some of the trends that have been establishing themselves a little bit here, both for the season and in the past 3 or 4 weeks. We'll take a look at our records specifically, along with team records, try to figure out what's going on with our over-under selections that were so sterling in the 2025 season. We'll get to it in a little bit, but it has been rough. So what can we perhaps do about that? We'll also get a gander at some of the perfect streaks remaining in the season. We've only got a few left, so stick around to see exactly what those are. And once we reflect and put everything in the history books, in that sports almanac, if you will, we will preview week 8 for you. There are 6 games this week. Orlando and Northern Arizona get the week off. We have 5 games on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. We'll make single game picks and put together a 3-leg parlay of the week, which, yep, last week's fell to a heartbreaking, incomprehensibly bad ending once more. And joining us for this week of analysis is a special guest, so stick around for that as well. All righty, so week 7 began with a big-time matchup in the Eastern Conference. The Green Bay Blizzard hosting the Orlando Pirates in a matchup between 2 above 500 teams. Very interesting matchup here for Liam Thompson, who got his first ever IFL start last season in the regular season finale against the then Massachusetts Pirates. He played respectably well and led Bay Area to the win on that occasion. So he gets his second crack as a starter against the Pirate franchise, and he pretty much built right upon that. He alone accounted for 7 total touchdowns, as the Pirate defense simply had no answer throughout the game. Even though the Pirate offense was equally as fantastic on the other side. Paxton D. Laurent doing what he does best, finding Thomas Owens, Teo Redding, Naquan Murray, Puka Williams getting involved in the rushing game as well as the kick return game. Orlando ended up putting up 68 points, but unfortunately for them, it was not enough, as Green Bay, with a field goal at the end of the game, turned out to be the separation that they needed. Green Bay ending up winning 71-68. The interesting note about this game, the Pirates actually scored a touchdown right at the end of the game. There may have been 1 second left on the clock for possibly some special teams magic to steal the game away, but the officials ruled that the clock hit all zeros, so that final play stood as the Pirate touchdown. Unfortunately, it was not enough for Orlando, as they have now lost 2 straight following a 3-0 start. Green Bay, meanwhile, advancing to 5-1. Our Saturday festivities began with a matchup maybe on the other end of the win-loss spectrum a little bit. There were 2 winless teams, Northern Arizona going to San Antonio to take on the Gunslingers. And I'll say it honestly here, unless you're a fan of one of these 2 franchises, this was a very, very rough watch. The offenses were just held pretty much entirely in check by the opposing defenses. Northern Arizona in particular looked very, very disjointed. They ended up starting Caleb Lowe in this game. Didn't lead a single touchdown drive. It was only a couple of field goals under his purview. He ends up getting hurt in the second quarter, so the Wranglers have to pivot back to Ramon Atkins-Frazier. Not a whole heck of a lot better for him, as this game was just wire to wire about San Antonio's defense getting a bounce back game after they had let up 63 in their previous outing against the Vegas Nighthawks. So the bar in that sense was set pretty low for the Gunslingers offense. All they needed was a few touchdown drives, which they got out of starter Fred Payton Jr. And the end result of this one, San Antonio grinding their way to their first win of the season at home. They beat Northern Arizona by a score of 32-14. So the Wranglers join the Iowa Barnstormers now, spoiler alert, as the only winless teams left in the league. One of our 2 8 p.m. matchups pitted the Tulsa Oilers at Arizona against the Rattlers in a non-conference game. And this one had every bit of excitement as the game between Orlando and Green Bay did, especially if you like point scoring. These teams lit it up. Both scored 30-plus in the first half of play, one that saw the Rattlers out to a slim 4-point lead. But the Oilers, they came up with some pretty clutch plays in that third quarter. They turned Arizona over on downs at one point. Later in the quarter, getting a fumble recovery to put them ahead by 10 points. Seemingly in command of that game and possibly en route to stealing that win on the road. Not so fast, said Max Myler. You're forgetting about the 2025 IFL MVP here. For the Rattlers, this was their breakout game on offense that I feel like some people were looking for. That 50, 60-point outburst that we had yet to see in this season. Myler in particular came up with some incredibly clutch throws late. None more so than the touchdown with about 6 seconds left, 24 yards, that went to Arlen Bruce IV. That brought the Rattlers back within 1. Coach Kevin Guy gambles on the 2-point conversion play. Myler again strings together some magic, converts that. And a field goal attempt by Bailey Hale, the Oilers, to steal the game back, ends up going wide to the right and short. And in an absolute thriller of a game, Arizona is the team that prevails, advancing to 4-1 with their 64-63 win over the Tulsa Oilers, who tumbled down to a 1-3 record despite some pretty close games that they've been in, which we'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to Tulsa's game of this week. In Des Moines, the Iowa Barnstormers hosting the Fishers Freight, looking to possibly get their first win of the season, now looking to Ivan Corbin as their full-time quarterback moving forward. For the Fishers Freight, this was about pretty much rinse and repeat what has gotten them to their dominant start so far. They ran the ball exceedingly well, very efficiently, sprinkling in some play-action passing game. Felix Harper was efficient as always. And the Freight got out to an early double-digit lead and basically never looked back. I will say the third quarter did get pretty interesting after a Harper interception on a rare underthrown ball by him. And Ivan Corbin was seriously impressive in this one for the Barnstormers, scoring 4 different touchdowns on the ground. It actually could have been 5 had he not fumbled on a longer run right around the second half. But in any event, yeah, the Barnstormers had a legitimate shot. Maybe one more play out of their defense late to maybe even out the tables a little bit more. But unfortunately for Iowa, it is not to be. They lose now a 17th consecutive game, this time falling 53-31 to the Fishers Freight, who match Green Bay's league best mark now at 5-1, whereas the Iowa Barnstormers, as we said before, they venture off to a record of 0-5, looking for any sort of momentum that they can get to help get them that ever elusive win. Our final game of Saturday night saw the New Mexico Chupacabras taking on the Vegas Nighthawks, a game that featured many a reunion on the Chupacabra side, with multiple coaching staff members and players having been a part of Vegas's 2025 championship team. So very, very emotional game. You had the Chupacabras coming in looking for a bit at an upset, but looks like they forgot their offense in Albuquerque here. The offensive line was just simply overpowered in this game. Vegas getting a total of 4 turnovers on New Mexico's 9 or 10 possessions, I believe it was. As the Chupacabras were just simply silenced by Vegas. Actually, with this game being the rare instance of Vegas not having to go explosive on the offensive side to get the win. In fact, I think the game had gotten to 40 or 41-12 at the end of the third quarter, to the point where both teams pretty much agreed to put their backups in at that point. So both quarterbacks we got a long, lengthy look at. Donovan Portery for New Mexico, Avon Rucker for the Vegas Nighthawks. So it was nice to see those guys get some snaps under their belt in regular season action. But this was about keeping up the hot streak for the Vegas Nighthawks. So this is their 4th consecutive win. They got the job done 48-12, with that 12 points being a season low allowed by a team in the IFL this season. And believe it or not, it actually earned the entire Nighthawk defense the Defensive Player of the Week honor, as announced by the IFL earlier this week. So those were Saturday's games. On Sunday, we had a doubleheader, starting off with Jacksonville at Quad City. Big Eastern Conference rivalry game for both these teams. Playoff rematch from the year before. Jacksonville looking for revenge. And their start, absolutely fantastic. Did a lot to accomplish that goal. James Cahoon was extremely sharp in this one, especially when it came to 3rd and long, 4th and long situations. The Shark defense doing their part as well. They end up getting a couple of interceptions off Daquan Neal in the first half. Jacksonville leads by 10 at the break. Quad City stages a little bit of a comeback. They end up turning the pressure up offensively. They bring the game back to within 1 point. They have the Sharks at a 4th and 15 from their own 5-yard line inside the 1-minute warning. But if you've got aspirations on being a championship team, you've got to make championship caliber plays. And that is precisely what Cahoon and Jaden Stoshak did. When they connected on a 15-yard pass, it required a little bit of a review, but the officials got the ruling correct where Jacksonville did make the line to gain. So they extended the drive, got a couple more forward-moving plays, and ended the game narrowly edging out the Quad City Steamwheelers 39-38. That improves Jacksonville's record to 3-1, so they are now third in the Eastern Conference. Quad City bumping a little bit out of the playoff picture now, sitting at a record of 2-4. So a little bit of a surprising early season result here for the team that is the reigning Eastern Conference regular season winner. Last but not least, out in San Diego, we had another rematch of two Western Conference hopefuls, the Strike Force hosting the Tucson Sugar Skulls. And the beginning of this game was quite literally a rock fight. Both defenses shining brightly. Tucson getting basically a 50-yard scoop and score as one of the highlight plays of the game's first 30 minutes. And the two teams ended the half exactly the way they started, all tied up. I really don't know what sort of pep talk that Coach Taylor Jenniser gave the Strike Force in the locker room, but whatever it was, it worked to literal perfection. As the defensive side of the ball, they gave up only 8 points as Tucson ended up making a quarterback change mid-game, going back to Draylen Ellis after a game and a half of Casey Otto. And the Strike Force offense, their life was much easier as a result of that. They end up scoring a few different touchdowns on their drives. They open up a double-digit lead. They end up getting a special teams fumble recovery on a kickoff for a touchdown for good measure. Kind of pad the stats a little bit. But San Diego, they advanced to 4-1 as well. They keep level with Arizona and Vegas as far as the Western Conference standings go. They defeat Tucson by a final score of 48-25, and that closed out a terrific week of IFL action. Our prediction specifically struggled quite a bit. We had tried to ride the streak of overs, and lo and behold, this was the week that went 2-5 on unders. So very funny how that works sometimes, but you know what? That's how it goes. So from our over-under betting record struggles, we have been abysmal. Just 3-10. It's offset really any great work that we've done with picking teams on the spread, picking teams on the money line. Two bet types where we have a positive record so far. But really, it's just about finding that happy middle ground between, who are the offensively efficient teams, what kind of styles do they like to play, what is their game tempo like. Those are things that we're going to have to continue looking at, challenging our preconceived notions there, and coming up with any adjustments as needed to try to turn that around. It's going to take a lot, but you know what? We did it last year with our money line selections, so it's all parts of the ebbs and flows of these predictions. So it's alarming, but I would not be too concerned about it at this stage in time. Our parlay of week 7. Oh, geez. How much more heartbreaking can you get than what we saw last week? Really. You had one leg win with the home dog, another leg win with a home team winning outright in a game that they won by 23. The one leg that didn't go, it was literally green with zeros on the clock. Unfortunately, that play resulted in an Orlando touchdown, which served as the backdoor cover to end Green Bay's 8-game home cover streak. Just inconceivable stuff that you quite literally cannot make up. Entertainment factor, off the charts. But as far as putting together a winning parlay, we are once again left short. I wrote about this in my preview, and I'm like, okay, we've now lost in basically every way that you could possibly lose. So it's time for us to get some breaks to go our way and deliver some winners here. Again, the goal remains 4 of these, and now we have about 13, 14 weeks to figure that out. So we'll see how that goes, but we are going to keep trying until we hit a stride. Our visual look at our year-to-date net gain or loss. From week 4 to week 7, that was basically that 21 game gauntlet. And even though we dropped about a unit, maybe 2, in both the flat method and the weighted method, you could very easily make the case that it could have been way worse. Could have been better, but it also could have been worse. So now that the very congested and high volume and low time span part of the season is through and out of the way, is it that kind of respite that maybe allows us to get back on an upswing? I'm hoping so, but again, we'll see what happens. All right, let's talk yearly results by bet here. Favorites and underdogs are converting roughly equally, with the favorites having a slight advantage after 35 games. The theme this week, as it has been for the past few weeks as these trends have been developing, home teams are incredibly profitable, both on the money line and against the spread. In fact, if you take the home team against the spread in the past 25 games, so the past 4 weeks of action, guess what? You would be up by 37.5% of your original bet total, which is honestly pretty absurd looking at it from that lens. Favorites on the money line have also been on an absolute tear recently. The past few weeks, they have won 18 of their 21 games outright, including a perfect 7-0 in last week's action. Though it should be noted, 2 of those favorites ended up winning by just a single point. So very, very thin line that you're kind of tapering on there, but nonetheless, the result holds. And now we have to figure out, is that because, the really good teams are pounding on the really, really bad teams right now? Or do we look at this and say, okay, historically, underdogs are going to come back. It's going to come eventually. Now we just have to cherry pick where those are. So again, it's that interesting give or take dynamic that's always worth consideration. The other significant trend here as well is now that overs and unders have kind of evened themselves out a little bit, we have found a little bit of a sweet spot in terms of finding maybe that magic number where the overs and the unders hit efficiency changes drastically. So on games with an over-under of 86.5 or less, if you take the over in that game, you're converting near 70% of the time. If you are looking at any of the games 87.5 or more, if you pick one of those games at random, there's about a 70% chance that that game went under. So is that something that we look at maybe on a blanket level? Or do particular matchups with particular teams kind of skew our viewpoint when it comes to that? So all very interesting trends. Use them however you will. Hopefully they provide a little bit of value. All right. We'll go through our team by team trends here quickly. We won't spend too much time here. Although I should note that those dark gray columns have now been replaced. These held teams 2025 statistics before. Those don't mean a whole heck of a lot to us now, especially with each team having played at least 4 games so far. But what we can do is bring in some results from this year, average them out, and see where the value is. As you can see, there are only 3 streaks now that remain perfect, only one of which gets put on the line this week, with Orlando's 5-0 over streak on bye, as is Northern Arizona's 0-5 outright record. But we'll see if Iowa can will their way to their first win of the season. They'll be hosting Quad City. We'll preview that game in just a few moments' time. But again, this is another table that we can refer to, see which teams are hot, which teams are not, and which offenses have been lighting up the scoreboard and which teams on that money line have been respecting the coin the most for their backers. Here are our results personally, team by team, highlighting a couple of our teams where we are 3 or more games below 500 with our predictions. New Mexico and Fishers we have struggled on. The odd thing about our freight games is that all 6 of our single game picks have been on the over-under. So very evident that's not working. So maybe this week and going forward, we pivot to that spread and that money line to get a little bit of a reversal of fortune. On the flip side, we are 4-1 in Arizona Rattlers games and 4-2 in Green Bay Blizzard games. So again, we'll see if we can keep our mental game on those couple teams in particular sharp, and on all 14 teams in general, in our quest to get at least 7 wins on all 14 of these squads. All right, time for our weekly disclaimers here. The lines and odds that we're going to use today are going to come from DraftKings Sportsbook. And this is purely a series rooted in fun, curiosity, and pretty much pure quantitative analysis. This is not meant to be misconstrued as betting advice or a machine with which to make money, because there's no such thing as a lock or a guarantee in the sports wagering world. I mean, we joke about it all the time, but you put those teams on the field or the pitch or the ice, anything can happen. So if you do decide to play, please be mindful of that, and please game responsibly. Most jurisdictions, you have to be 21 years of age or older to play, so bear that in mind as well. If you do decide to place bets, please do so responsibly. Set yourself a budget in terms of both time and money. Risk only what you can afford to lose. And if you feel like you or a loved one is maybe having an issue with problem gaming, there are a lot of resources online and state issued that can help out in that area. Responsiblegameplan.org or haveagameplan.org is one example. Responsibleplay.org is another. If you have a mobile sports book, they pitch out resources all the time about responsible play or gaming responsibly as part of their initiatives as well. So if you're out there, know that you are not alone and help is available, and assistance as well. All right, so let's get to the big board. But before we do, it is time to introduce our special guest of the evening. This individual has been on an incredible tear with his league-wide analysis so far this season. His bet record speaks for itself. It's converting at a 77% clip. So if you've followed this guy in any way, shape, or form and have tailed his bets, you are sitting pretty right now. Ladies and gentlemen, from the In the Alley YouTube channel, it is Mr. Cody Bryant. Cody, welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight.
How's it going?
I'm great. How are things really doing?
I can't complain. I mean, the betting has been really good. Kind of cooled off a little bit this past week, but I mean, still got a winning week out of it. Went 4-3, and records up to 27-8. So I can't really complain about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about those stack winning weeks, right? I remember my first season that I did this. It was like, honestly, like I go 3-3, then 4-3, then 4-2, then 4-3. It was like just this consistent string of results. And I don't think it was until the final week of the season where I finally got to a 5-win week. So
yeah,
really, I mean, there's 2 ways you can do it, right? You can, shoot through the moon right away, kind of like what you did this year, or maybe the consistent approach, like the schmuck that I am. But in any event, I'm so glad that you're able to hop on. Are you ready to go conquer this big board, my friend?
Like I said, I'm getting myself ready because the thought of just being so hot right now, every year it's always like May, June, July, one of those months. There's like 2 straight weeks where I just go like over, or there's like maybe 1 or 2 wins in there. So I'm on pins and needles right now. And this could be that weekend because there are so many good games that it's been a challenge to kind of choose some of these.
Yeah, and it's really been that way all year. But hey, positive vibes only here. I'm led to believe we're in a scenario where we keep this thing rolling.
Let's go for it.
Love to hear it. Let's get our board up here. And I'm going to shift us over to the side. All right, perfect. Let's begin with the first game in chronological order here. And my goodness, this is a titanic clash. A battle of 5-1s between Green Bay and Fishers. The Freight are at home. They are 4.5-point favorites, although note the slight difference in odds there, whether you decide to take Green Bay or Fishers on the handicap. The over-under is 92.5. On the money line, Green Bay plus 154 and Fishers minus 185. Cody, give us some introductory thoughts or kind of first thoughts that come to your head when you look at this game.
I mean, that's literally what I just mentioned. It's so hard to choose games when this is the first one. And we got a couple, like I said, on the docket here this week. For Green Bay and Fishers, we know what Fishers is going to do. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. But that game against Iowa this past weekend, they showed flashes of passing. It's a brand new concept that they've introduced into this game. I get it. But there was something about it where, like, even with the accuracy that Felix Harper had, he did throw an interception. And then after that interception, they just pounded the rock after that and pretty much said, Iowa, you're not going to come in and beat us. You're not going to get close. And they did get close, but Fishers just flexed their muscle. With a tougher opponent, I see them leaning heavily. I do think, if I remember correctly, either in this the broadcast for this game or maybe the previous game, I can't remember, for Fishers, they said Josiah King should be back. So that's only going to add to that rushing attack of Josiah King and Dominic Roberto are both going to be out there. For Green Bay, Liam Thompson and company really need to get the passes out to Drayshawn Hudson or Terrell Carey. Those guys have been lighting it up. We know both of these defenses are going to be good. The running game leaves a little bit to be desired, but DeMylan Brown has picked up really well for Green Bay. So while it's not where it has been in recent years when you've had, Kaimani Clark or Jalen Cagle or whatever, they're still running the ball. They still have the quarterback running the ball. It's not Max Myler, but it's Liam Thompson. He's doing what he needs to do. So it's a clash of the Titans. They've already met before. Green Bay got the victory, and that's Fishers' only loss. So there's a little bit of a revenge factor in this one of Fishers being at home. That's why I'm going with Fishers on the money line with it.
All right. I do like that pick a lot. It kind of leans upon what we talked about before of home teams just being on this incredible heater to begin the season. And
Right.
It's really not an entirely uncommon concept, given that that has been the multi-year trend. Obviously, the going is going to be a little bit rougher for Fishers in this game because, look, you're not beating up on the Iowa Barnstormers. But I think of the past meeting between these two teams at the Rush Center, which, as you said, was Fishers' only loss of the season. I remember Green Bay was up by like 26 points in that game, and then Fishers made this mad charge back. I think they got to within 7, actually, with a chance to possibly take the lead. And then Harper had an ill-timed interception on a throw into the end zone, and that allowed Green Bay to kind of settle things down a little bit and pull away with that victory. But the other thing, too, that ultimately led me to my final selection for this game, I mean, you've seen my stuff, Cody. I talk ad nauseum about how great Green Bay is at home in terms of covering the spread. But Fishers is right there behind them in terms of efficiency. In fact, they've actually covered the spread in each of their last 6 games at home. And you look at some of those opponents, they've been no slouches. Green Bay, San Diego, Quad City, Arizona. There is just something about the Fisher Event Center right now where the Freight are just absolutely feeding off of that atmosphere. They are feeding off of their passionate fan base. And Green Bay, I mean, aside from a couple games, they haven't really been road tested yet. They've had a fairly heavily home-based schedule. And it's to a point right now where I actually feel comfortable laying the points in this matchup at 4.5. And I would play this to 6.5 or maybe even 7.5, to be honest with you. But you did mention that revenge factor as well. I do think that comes into play here, where it's going to be that little bit extra. And if it does wind up that Josiah King comes back after a 2-game absence, that adds more fuel for them, quite literally. Not so subtle nod to the Indy fuel. Got a little bit of a hockey guy here, but yeah, like it's scary too, right? You're fading Liam Thompson, who is now a 3-time offensive player of the week, so that's going to carry a little bit of uneasiness, queasiness in the stomach, but I think the Freight hold their own at home. I mean, and we don't even need a double-digit win here. Like 51-44, hey, we take it.
Right.
So that's the direction I took with that game, and Cody was on the Freight, ignoring the points, which, needless to say, is probably the safer bet.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a scenario where Fishers, they can win by a touchdown. I can also see a scenario where like Green Bay is able to obviously cover the spread, and I obviously you see a scenario where Green Bay can pull the upset here. But anytime I kind of just like run this in my head, I'm just thinking like I see Fishers winning more often than not, even if it's just by a point. So I'm not going to get any sort of spread. I'm just going to take that money line. The odds are a little bit weaker. I get that.
Yeah,
but
plus 154 on the Green Bay side is tempting, though. I'm not going to lie.
It is. It very much is. It's insane.
Right.
It's insane to think that one of these teams is going to be 6-1.
Yep. Hey, and it'll be well earned, whichever team rises to the occasion on Saturday. All right, let's move then to Quad City in Iowa. This is our only game of the slate where the home team is the underdog. Iowa given 13.5 points here. The over-under is 88.5. On the money line, Quad City is minus 500. And if you're a believer that Iowa can snap their 17-game losing streak, that's a plus 380 payout there if you're tempted to take that. We've mentioned Iowa before, but it seemed that the 1-game sample that they had against the Freight last week kind of paved the way a little bit. We started to see some flashes here and there on both sides of the ball, particularly with, Coach Andre Coles clearly going in the direction of Ivan Corbin, looking for him to show off his strength in the rushing game, where he's been a brutally punishing rusher in his short time as starter so far, while hoping that his supporting cast of Curtis Ravenel, Donald McKinney, and those guys can support him with the passing game and help him make strides there. So it's a little bit of a building block to see what Iowa's offensive identity could become. And defensively, we got some solid games out of Tyler Tate. He had a sack in the last game. John Adams Jr. had that interception that we talked about earlier in the third quarter off of Felix Harper. So it's not a defense completely devoid of making plays.
Yep.
They just have to come up with an ability to, stack those one on the other.
Yep.
And that really is their path. And being at home, we've seen this before the past few years. You never know with Iowa at home. So what do you see, Cody, on the Quad City side as we kind of continue with this game?
On the Quad City side, it's pretty much the Daquan Neal and Keon Williams show. There have been flashes from Kevon Rudd. There have been some flashes from Jordan Vesey and even a little bit from Jared Ware here and there. But it's pretty much, dare I say, and I've said it in one of my previous recaps, it's pretty much kind of like an Iowa 2.0 almost. Not quite. I'm not comparing it because Iowa's offense last year was pretty abysmal. But the offense that Iowa had last year was throw it up to Keon Williams and he'll come down with it. You pretty much have that here with Quad City, but then it's throw it up to Keon Williams. If he's not open, then Kevon Rudd might be. And if that's not it, then Daquan Neal is going to run. So if you can exploit the defense of Iowa and get Keon Williams to keep doing what he's doing, Quad City should come away with a victory here. One thing to put or think about the last time these two teams played, which I was actually at the game up there in Moline, Iowa really tried to start running the game or running the ball, excuse me, early in the game with Najee Bryant-Lele, and then they sort of abandoned it. Remember, I think they were up 9 or 10 to nothing, and then Quad City started to get into it. Their defense started to clamp down, and then they pulled away with the victory. They won 46-25, and for all intents and purposes, I kind of lean that way again. Not saying Iowa's going to pull out to that because they've actually had some slow starts in recent weeks. I see them leaning very heavily on the run with Corbin. If they have Elder again for another week, if they bring back Bryant-Lele, I see them relying on the run a lot. So for my bet on this one, I'm going to go ahead and go under the 88.5 because one, their previous matchup only 71 points. And if I'm seeing Iowa lean more and more into that running game, I think that could waste some clock. I think that's an opportunity. We know Quad City can run it too. They'll run it with Ware. They'll run it with Neal. They'll do some jet sweeps. I think you have a good chance of getting up towards that 88. It might be a sweat, but I think under 88 is probably going to hit a little bit more if they can waste clock running the ball.
And hey, our buddy Trey will tell you firsthand that sweating an under in any Iowa Barnstormer game is not for the faint of heart.
Oh, we already dealt with that with Green Bay and Iowa about a month ago.
Lord, not that bad beat.
Yeah, not the one where they only put up 19 points, but their first meeting, because I was at that game in Des Moines. I watched that live and just kind of had my heart get crushed, where they put up 40 plus points in the fourth quarter.
It was a 40-point fourth.
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous. And listen, as silly as this is to say, now that I've ridden that Iowa 12-game over streak at home to its perhaps foregone conclusion, in the words of Harrison Ford from 1984, anything goes. So I am very much in lockstep with you on this pick. There are obviously some inherent risks with this, as there is with any under bet. You could have some big plays on defense, special teams. You could get short fields thrown around here and there. But at the end of the day, this Iowa offense, even if they do get their running game going pretty well, we kind of saw them do it a little bit last week. It still netted just 31 points. And I think their single game high this year was the 39, where they had the more pass-centric Harry Rubidoux as their starter, and he's no longer listed on the active roster. So this one is really just about damage control in terms of Iowa's defense allowing set amount of points to Quad City. And look, this is going to be Keon Williams' first game back in Iowa as the rival. So hashtag revenge game, underline it, highlight it, mark it red, do whatever you got to do, because that is going to be a must-watch dynamic in this game. But I see this panning out as something in the 50s to something in the 30s. Not too dissimilar from what we got with Iowa's last game at home against the Fisher's Freight. So we'll go with this one on the squad wide. We'll see if Trey winds up agreeing with us. See if we can make it our good old-fashioned 3-man squad ride. So I do like that. All right, game number 3 out of 5 on Saturday night. This is our first non-conference game of the week. It is the New Mexico Chupacabras continuing their elongated road trip here as they now visit the Jacksonville Sharks, who are the largest favorites of the week, giving 18.5 to New Mexico. The over-under is 81.5. New Mexico plus 600 and Jacksonville minus 900. Cody, what are some of the highlights that you see from this game?
The highlights are going to be lowlights for New Mexico, unfortunately. What we've seen has just been a lot of mental mistakes from the Chupacabras. They've been able to move the ball. And that's the weird thing. Like, they've played some close games. You look back at their entire season as a whole, they've played some close games. In fact, there are multiple opportunities where they could have won some games, but false starts, a lot of offensive penalties and mental mistakes. The kicking game and the special teams, they're giving up kick return touchdowns. They're not making field goals. They're not making extra points. Low snaps. high snaps, bad snaps, anything and everything, and the offensive line not being able to protect Jerome Johnson where he's running for his life more often than not. This is just an opportunity for Jacksonville to kind of feed on that. There is a part of me that I want to talk myself into the plus 18.5 to think like they can get things going. But you just went from a Vegas team who just demoralized you to the point where you only scored 12 points. And then I'm supposed to think you're going to travel all the way across the country to go to Jacksonville and keep it close with this one. I don't see it. And the way that Jacksonville played against Quad City and the way they've played kind of, 3-1, they've played against Northern Arizona, everything they've done. It's by default, man. I got to go minus 18.5. I do. I got to go with Jacksonville on this.
Yeah. And what we have here is our second pick of the week where we are perfectly aligned. And I'm right there with you. This one to me just comes down to, you know what, New Mexico, for all intents and purposes, if we're going to call them a new franchise here, they're learning very quickly the difficulties of playing games on the road. And like even before that disastrous showing against Vegas, only scoring 12 points, their previous one in New Mexico, not that much better, just 26. So they've spent the past couple games averaging under 20 points per game. And like you've said, that offensive line has had its question marks throughout pretty much the entire season. And now you're shipping them pretty much across the country, going against up the team with arguably maybe the best offensive and defensive line in the game right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, could Jerome Johnson string together some insane magic? Of course he can. He's the 2024 league MVP. Like, nobody's going to question his level of talent. But there comes to a point where that supporting group has to be level with you in order to give yourself a puncher's chance. And right now, we just haven't seen that from the Chupacabras for a full 60 minutes. Really just against Northern New Mexico or Northern Arizona, and to a lesser extent Tucson, and that's really about it. But Jacksonville, I mean, I think of the broadcast as well. When I was watching their game last week, Coach Jason Gibson is all about attack, aggression. We've seen the Sharks get out to some insanely strong first halves of play, and if they can get another one of those here, that's pretty much going to be like 75% of the lift in order to cover this lofty number.
Yeah.
Really, the only way I see this going a bit sideways is if New Mexico cracks like 34, 35 points. And that could get a little bit dicey. But
they could, yeah.
I just think, where games are won and lost at the line of scrimmage, you can also make the argument games are, blowouts or not blowouts in that same regard. And right now, both teams are just on completely different worlds when it comes to that part of their game. So
yeah,
I have the Jacksonville laying the number as well.
Yeah, it's also when you just,
if we get backdoor covered, then fine. Tip the hat to Northern Arizona or New Mexico and move on.
If you just want to play recency bias with it too, Jacksonville kind of stopped. I wouldn't say stopped, but like they hindered the running game of Quad City. And Quad City, I can't remember the amount of rushing yards that they had total, but they really kind of stopped Jared Ware. They kind of stopped Quan Neal and all of that stuff. So if they're able to do the exact same thing to Jerome Johnson, pretty much kind of what Vegas did. Vegas tried to keep him in the pocket. He was able to get out from time to time, but kept him in the pocket, made him have to force throws, and it got so bad that they had to put their backup in. So if Jacksonville can kind of do that again, as I said, they held Quad City to 38 points, and I think Quad City is better than New Mexico. So, yeah, I got to go. My gut's saying take the plus 18, as it could be, you're spotting them 18 points already. So my gut wants to say that, but there's just that logic in my brain where it's like Jacksonville's better. Don't overthink this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we'll both look for a Sharks masterclass on Saturday down in Duval. All right, Cody, we are halfway home on to the next stage of these games here at 8 o'clock on Saturday. We've got the San Diego Strike Force visiting Tulsa. This will be the third meeting all time between these two teams. They played each other in both 2023 and 2024. For this game, the Oilers are 2.5 favorites on their home turf. The over-under is 88.5. San Diego plus 120 and Tulsa minus 142 with that money line front. I'll talk a little bit about San Diego here first to start because I feel like I owe them a little bit of an apology because I think a few weeks ago they were preparing for their game in Tucson against the Sugar Skulls. And I was like, okay, this is kind of a defining game potentially in that Western Conference playoff race because Tucson had just come off a win. They had Draylon Ellis looking, for the most part, fantastic in that stretch of play for Tucson. And then what ended up happening was San Diego got out to that incredible start, maybe gave away that lead, but then they ended up pulling it out and getting the W on that game. And since then, they've taken down Quad City, and then they doubled down on that victory against Tucson, beating them by 23 last time out. So, whatever change was made there in San Diego, whether it was, the offense's revitalization or maybe the defense showing some more of its 2024 takeaway form, the Strike Force have been great. They have, I believe, won their last 3 games, whereas Tulsa has been on the wrong end of a few straight heartbreakers.
Yeah.
But it seems right now the Strike Force, they're playing with confidence right now. Nate Davis doing his thing. Shane Hooks maybe establishing himself as that wide receiver 1. You have Eddie Vander back there in the backfield as well. And that defense is always going to make a play if given the opportunity. So San Diego's coming in strong. What are your thoughts on the Oilers side of things?
I've mentioned this in recaps and previews before, but the Oilers offense goes as far as TJ Edwards takes them. Now he's been taking them pretty far. They have been putting up quite a bit of points. And one of the surprising aspects of it is when you look at when you look at receiving yards and maybe even receptions and touchdowns, Jermaine Smith has been very underrated. And this is like Frisco level of Edwards to Smith when it comes to that. So
yeah,
very, very good
2024 pocket.
Yep. Yeah. So overall, I mean, having that, they haven't really had a running game. Now, I've criticized that, but when you go back to last year, they had their backup quarterback in Hassan Rogers pretty much being the glorified running back until they got Jimmy Smith out there later on throughout the season, and then they brought in Sam Castronova and all that. So the lack of a running game has really infused the passing game, which has really helped Edwards. He will scramble, but he is your leading rusher on the team, I think, with only just 100 yards, which is kind of crazy to think about knowing he's a dual threat. The defense is good. Now, I think last week they did release Ulrich Jones. That didn't really seem to matter because they did give up points and they were in an opportunity to beat Arizona. I want to go with Tulsa just on the money line, but I think the better odds for me right now, because I feel like their back's up against the wall, but the better odds are both teams are scoring on a clip. Why ruin a good thing? Let's go over 88.5.
I do like that as well. When I was running the numbers earlier, I had this number right around the low 90s on average. Really because of the way that both offenses operate. Like we mentioned it before with Tulsa, they've become a very pass-heavy team, and they've been able to take the top off a lot of defenses. Orlando, Arizona, to a lesser extent, Fishers, once they kind of got their footing underneath them in that game as well. And San Diego with Nate Davis, they're much of the same way. It's like, Davis hangs onto the ball for a split sec. Next thing you know, he's lobbing into the end zone, and lo and behold, there's Dallas Daniels. So these teams have played their games so far at a pretty quick clip in terms of shifting possessions from one to the other.
Right.
Driving game tempo in that way, which at the end of the day is the framework that allows for as many points as possible to be scored. So I like the overplay there a lot more than the under. This is the game, though, where I'm actually going to take a little bit of a dice roll.
Oh.
Go with the underdog on the money line with San Diego. There's a couple things here where I do like this a little bit. I actually have San Diego as a field goal favorite for this game. Not to mention the strike force, for what it's worth, they do have a 2-0 all-time series lead against Tulsa.
Right.
But it's not really just against the Oilers where they've been dominant. Like, ever since they hired Taylor Jenniser, they have been one of the best road teams pound for pound across the entire league. Like, we've seen them go in and take down Arizona. We've seen them go and take down Vegas. So they don't shy away from any matchup. And there's a psychological factor too, a little bit, when it comes to Tulsa, because they've had their 3 losses by 1 point, by 2 points, and then another game that went to overtime where they dropped it as well.
Yeah.
So they've literally been right there, just have not been able, for one reason or another, to close those games out. This is a stiff test for both teams, but again, it's one of those ones where it's so evenly matched where it does make sense from a betting standpoint to put some faith in the underdog to come through. And plus 120 is a reasonably solid number to justify taking that chance on.
I don't hate that. I don't, because there is part of me that thinks, like, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is almost like a back against the wall for Tulsa, and you kind of have to see how they respond. Do they overexert themselves? Because if they drop to 1-4, it's like panic button. I know Trey talks about putting the panic button. I've talked about it too. Is this a point where you start thinking about the panic button, regardless of how close or how lopsided the defeat would be? But you need this victory to stay within that playoff race, because otherwise you're dealing with Jacksonville, Fishers, and Green Bay, all potentially, I knew 2 of those teams will play against each other, but all potentially getting wins, Quad City potentially getting a win, and you're even further out of that playoff race. So I almost think that this is a must win for Tulsa, which could play into San Diego's hands. The thing for me, though, and it's the reason I'm going with the over in this one, is a lot of teams have put up points on San Diego. Their defense does leave a little bit to be desired when they're not playing teams like Tucson. So I do think that over can go, but and that's the reason I'm not necessarily picking a winner in this one, is because I don't know who's going to win. I can clearly see, to your credit, I can clearly see San Diego coming in saying, we're the better team. We're 4-1. We need to keep pace with Vegas and Arizona as we want to get one of the top seeds in the West. But I could also see Tulsa going, look, we've been dragged through the mud, all of these close losses. Look at what happened against Fishers. We're back home. Let's show them what we can do. So like I said, I kind of lean a little bit with San Diego just being like record wise, but there's a part of me that's like, I think Tulsa can pull this out. But either way, it should be a very entertaining game.
Yeah, I fully appreciate that stance too, where it's like, look, we don't care who wins or loses at this stage. Just give us an entertaining game. Yeah. Give us some points here. Which, I mean, both teams have had a demonstrated ability where they have done that. Like San Diego put up 73 in a game earlier this year. Tulsa has had games of 63, 55. So those offensive ceilings, man, they exist. They really do.
You're just asking both teams to put up 45 points. That's it.
Yep.
It seems doable. Yep, seems doable.
All right. To wrap up Saturday's action, it is a Western Conference showdown. San Antonio Gunslingers and Tucson Sugar Skulls in a matchup that seems more like a scene from semi-pro than it does an indoor football league game. This is a battle for 4th place in the Western Conference. So for this one, Tucson is a 1.5 favorite, though they are paying even money if you think they can take a 2+ point victory there. The over-under is 78.5. On the money line, both teams are laying money. San Antonio, you're laying the nickel -105, and Tucson is -115. Very fascinating game, Cody, and very weird to discuss both of these teams when it comes to, potential playoff picture. But with the way that this early season is shaken out so far, guess what? That's where we are.
Yep.
But yeah, what is your prevailing thought on one or both of these teams that stands out to you the most?
I think one team has figured out their quarterback situation a little bit more than the other. So I think Fred Payton's going to start for San Antonio. He's started the last couple of games. Yes, Joaquin Collazo has had to come in and have some relief. I know he started the season, and Fred Payton did start the season, if I'm not mistaken. But
yep.
Yeah, I think that they're going to ride Fred Payton with that. And With San Antonio, they've had a very good bright spot. I've talked about Dion Cook in plenty of recaps and previews. He has had a very, very good season. I've talked about it too. You've needed to replace Callie Rashad, Naquan Murray, DJ Myers, whoever's Callie. I think I said Callie Rashad, but regardless, you need to replace all these guys. And he has been that spot there. Austin Upshaw has stayed kind of consistent with himself. On the Tucson side of things, I don't know who's going to start. I truly don't. I can see the scenario where Draylon Ellis goes. I can see the scenario where they're like, we need to throw Casey Otto back there because they threw him back out there at the end of the game against San Diego after already going to Ellis. So I don't know. I don't know what their offensive identity is. At least San Antonio has a little bit more of a semblance of like, we're going to throw it and then maybe run it a little bit. It's no different than what they've done in the last couple of years. So because of that, and because I think that this could be a game that could have some yakety sax music, I'm just going to go with San Antonio on the money line. I think just, again, recency bias with this one. I think San Antonio just looks a little bit better. I could be talked into Tucson winning because, yeah, but I think San Antonio is just a little bit better of a team right now. Things are starting to kind of gel for them. Tucson looked like things were gelling, and now it's all started to kind of, the gels oozed out, to keep that going. But I don't know. I like the defense of Tucson. I think it should be a closer game, but there will be mistakes that are made. I think San Antonio can limit those mistakes more than Tucson can.
For sure. Yeah, you do definitely bring up a good point with Tucson's quarterback situation, because they seem to be stuck in a bit of both worlds right now. Because it seems to me, at least, that the body of work that Draylon Ellis has shown the higher ceiling when compared to Casey Otto, but maybe that floor is a little bit lower than what Otto gave you earlier, because for the most part, you look back at his season debut as a starter against New Mexico,
right?
It wasn't flashy at all, but he took care of the ball, if nothing else. And that was a huge part of why Tucson ended up establishing themselves as the victors in that game.
Right.
And for Tucson, their quarterback situation, I had my concerns about it in the preseason, like knowing full well that, yes, they have a talented roster, some recognizable names across the board, but who is that quarterback going to be, and how far is he going to take you? So for Coach Rayshon Kaiser, that's kind of the question that you have to answer here for this game is, which quarterback do you think gives you the best chance to win the game here in this particular matchup?
Yeah.
Against a Gunslinger's defense that has rather quietly been a top 3 unit in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because aside from giving up that 63-point game to Vegas, they have pretty much shut the door on basically everybody else.
Yeah.
Like Arizona, they got 44 in their matchup earlier this season, but that's still a very high upside Rattler offense that you kept largely in check, especially near the beginning of that game.
Yeah, it was a very close game.
So when you look at kind of where both teams are heading right now from kind of like a confidence standpoint in the personnel that they currently have, San Antonio very much in a place where they can go in and win this game. After all, they did do this last year, stomping out the Sugar Skulls by 20 in the Boneyard last year.
Yeah.
My pick here is actually a little bit of a bolder one. I actually have the under.
Yeah, I mean,
78.5.
It makes perfect sense. It truly does.
Like, look, this number is scary, especially when you're betting a lower number. And also when you know nothing about ball like I do, and you're 0-4 with your under bets so far this season. But here's the thing I learned from, the past few weeks, especially last week, where at the end of the day, the offenses are pretty much going to drive the scoring of the game. Like defenses, yes, they're going to have their matchups and all of that. But in total this season, you can't really constructing an argument that either the Gunslingers or the Sugar Skulls aren't bottom 5 in the league in offensive efficiency right now, especially where the Sugar Skulls have that question to answer at the quarterback position. And for the Gunslingers, it's a little bit of the same thing too, although to a lesser extent. Like, we could see a scenario here where, let's say, Fred Payton gets the start. His first 2 drives go fruitless.
Right.
What does Jonathan Bain do at that point? Do you stick with
Right.
Peyton, or do you go with Collazo and keep that quarterback carousel going?
I think
So the Gunslingers defense has been good. Tucson's defense has been fairly solid as well. I think they played a lot better game than the 48 points against San Diego last week would indicate.
right.
Because remember, the last 7 points of that game were completely avoidable with that weird bar ball.
Yeah, I think something else that you can take into consideration too is to your credit, like you said, like defense can influence the games. For Tucson, they kind of have. Zach Twardowski had that scoop and score against San Diego. They've had a blocked field goal for a touchdown against New Mexico. They've had the kick return for a touchdown or something like that, or a pick six or something against New Mexico as well too. So some of those numbers and points could be inflated because you see that number, you're like, well, the offense put up all those points. Not necessarily for Tucson. Their defense has scored some points. So that could also it can lean you towards the under. But if the defenses are putting up points, that could scare you a little bit with that lower, 78.5.
Yeah,
Not put pressure on you. But again, Tucson's offense isn't putting up those points. It's kind of their special teams and defense for some of these games.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it all goes back to those kind of same talking points when you're talking about an under. It's like there's always those perils of, those pick sixes and those kick return touchdowns. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you get the ball across the goal line, just as long as it's doing so and there's no laundry on the field as a result of it. But yeah, for my pick, I'm going to lean on the fact here that these are two relatively struggling offenses. This is going to be close, I would imagine. But let's take our chances here and see if we can't get this under to cash.
I think something else, and again, it's not to scare you or be like change your bet. We know that San Antonio doesn't necessarily shy away from going forward on fourth down. They will bring Tyler Huddle out every once in a while. And we do know that Tucson, given whatever distance that they have within the right range, they will bring Kevin Macias out for field goals. So that could kind of go towards the over if they're hitting their field goals. And we know that they can hit deuces. We know that there can be rouges and stuff like that. So again, it's not to influence one way or the other, but the special teams can be in play in this one from the kicking perspective as well.
Absolutely. All right, one more game to dive into, Cody. And just like our opener, this one's going to be a dandy. It is the number 1 and number 2 team out in the Western Conference right now. Arizona at Vegas. The Nighthawks, defending champions, laying 10.5. The over-under, 93.5. Arizona paying plus 270 on the money line, and Vegas minus 340 on the money line. Now, Cody, this is the first time in the IFL's 4-year betting era when the Rattlers have been made double-digit underdogs.
It's insane.
What do you think of that? Aside from the fact that it is insane. A point to which I would totally agree.
It shows you the consistency that Arizona's always had. It shows you that, like, they don't really lose at home. 2, it shows you that depending on their opponent, they will either beat them and cover the spread or whatever. If they've ever really been underdogs, it hasn't really been by too many points. If they've ever lost, to be brutally honest with you, it hasn't really been by too many points. You take that Fishers game this season out of the equation, but last year they lost to Tucson by field goals and extra points. They lost to San Diego by the 1 point or whatever it was with the controversial ending. So it's like, if Arizona loses, they don't lose by a lot. Again, Fisher's game notwithstanding. That leads me to obviously the main pick, and I think the pick that a lot of people are going to make, and it's plus 10.5 for Arizona. I don't know if Vegas, the casino, just looked at the scores and said, well, Vegas destroyed their opponent, and Arizona, okay, we'll give Vegas more of a spread here. Or, and I hate being like this, like speculative, like, are there some injuries or some things that we don't know about that the transactions need to come out with that are showing that, hey, Arizona might be banged up a little bit? You don't want to wade into those waters necessarily, but that is a contributing factor for these betting odds and stuff like that, because you want both these teams at full strength. You want an entertaining game. But I got to go with Arizona plus 10.5 just because of all of the previous betting trends. I mean, and because of their play, first and foremost. This should be a close game.
Yeah, within the context of things, I mean, I'll talk first a little bit about like the argument for the way that the odds makers put these lines, because I had it right at the same thing. where
Really?
you look at just the offensive, defensive efficiencies, game tempo. My model spit out Vegas minus 10.5 as well, if you could believe it. But every so often, and I don't mention this enough on this show, but there comes a time where you kind of have to take that quantitative part out of it and look at the greater context of, what this game is. This is a battle between arguably the best two teams in the Western Conference, one of whom could very easily be in the IFL's championship game in Tucson once we get to August. And you're telling me that this is going to be decided by double digits?
Mm-hmm.
Like, very, very realistically, it could be. But these teams have met, I believe, 6 times so far in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
All except for one of them have been one-score games. Like, Rattlers Nighthawks games have been instant classics.
Yep.
Perhaps their shining example is their playoff game from 2024 that saw the Dalton Dash, the 2-yard run that sent the Rattlers to the Western Championship that year. So,
yes.
like, I get it. Jaden DeLaura, Josh Tomas, Quentin Randolph, they have been incredible. Their defense, as we saw last week, also carries one of the highest ceilings in the game. Top 3 team in essentially every category. But Arizona is right there with them in terms of capability.
Mm-hmm.
And Arizona and Vegas, these are the two teams, we've seen it before. They will bring the best out of each other.
Yep.
And if it winds up being a double-digit game, it's probably going to be some wacky fourth quarter play that, you're bringing a Scott Van Pelt with bad beats after, to be honest, like pitchy woo-woo.
Well, I'll push back a little bit. The only way that I personally see it being a 2-score game is if Kevin Guy or Mike Davis. I was thinking Mike Brown. I was like, that's not his name. If Mike Davis or Kevin Guy has that bang bang first half, second half onside kick, we get the ball back, we score with no time, go into the second half, and we score coming out of the second half, and you take that 7-point lead and turn it into 14, and they go back and forth when it comes to that. That's kind of like the only way I see it when it comes to that, because I think these two teams are going to be very, very close.
I say it to my friends all the time. Find yourself a companion the way that Kevin Guy loves onside kicks.
Especially
so
at the end of the
I
first
could
half.
totally,
Yep.
I could totally see that scenario panning out, because all of a sudden, like, you're looking at a pretty even game for the majority of the game. Then you have that 2-for-1 scenario, and now all of a sudden the team in front is kind of defending that 14, 13-point lead or whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I think we both agree on this one. This is Arizona at double-digit underdogs.
Yep.
When are we going to see this again? Probably never.
Very rarely.
It's so hard to forecast out that far. So this is another one where we're squad riding. Arizona at plus 10.5 to give us another instant classic out at Lee's Family Forum. All righty. So those are the single game picks and previews for the week ahead. Now, I will say this, Cody. The last time that we went on stream live and cooked up the terrific triumvirate, we cooked. It wound up as a 6-1 winner. So let's see if we can't have a lightning strike twice here.
Let's go for it.
So Trey, who is unable to join us tonight, unfortunately, set his pick at Arizona plus 10.5 to sort of kick things off. So I will leave it to you, my friend, to deliver your favorite pick from any of these other games to make up the middle part of this.
And see, that's a very tough one, is because, like, I think we're all in agreement that was the one that all three of us would go with, is Arizona plus 10.5. Because, like I said, I think a lot of people are going to bet that, and I'm sure if you click on the more bets and stuff like that on DraftKings and go under, you can figure it out. But I don't know, because part of me is thinking like Jacksonville covering the spread might be my pick as a way to just kind of get after it. But I also think like Fisher's on the money line, just taking that. So it's very tough. I'm kind of torn, because I'm confident, but I'm not confident enough to like lock one in, and I know I have to. God, and then I'm also thinking the over 88.5 because I think San Diego and Tulsa can just go back and forth with it, man. I'll go with the logic. I'll take Jacksonville minus 18.5. I think they just, like I said, it doesn't have to be a 3 touchdown. It doesn't have to be 21. It just has to be 19 points. And so far, we've seen games with Fishers and Iowa going that spread that just happened. Somehow Fishers was able to cover last week with it. They've been able to do it before. I think Green Bay covered against Iowa. I know this isn't Iowa, but we've seen 18 and 19 points covered already this season. Let's hope for another one.
I got you there. So now that leaves me, and very much similar to you, I'm kind of torn between a few different options that I like. Given what we talked about with San Diego Tulsa, and the way that my model kind of provided a little bit of disparity with what my predicted over-under was going to be versus what the actual over-under was going to be.
Yeah.
I say we ride this over.
Okay.
As this third leg here. Technically second if you're looking at chronological order, but to each their own, I guess.
Yeah.
So we'll keep the odds consistent here in terms of the payout. So that is a plus 595 proposition. So basically 6-1.
Yep.
A winner here turns $10 into $69.57. And again, we've hit one of these. We've gone 2-1 in each of the others. So, like I said, it's 3 guys that know a little ball. So hopefully we'll get this string of perfection to go our way this time around. With Arizona plus 10.5, Jacksonville minus 18.5, and that San Diego Tulsa over 88.5 to close it out. All right. Fantastic. And I will go over my own picks for my parlay. I know I put this out in my post in the forum a little bit, but can wrap things up a little bit with that tonight. And Cody, feel free to interject on any of your thoughts on this one.
Go for it.
I'm actually starting off with piggybacking off one of your picks here. I'm going to go Fishers on the money line to start things out. Really what we talked about in this game pretty much rings true here. Fishers, they've got that revenge game narrative. They're going to want to get after Green Bay after suffering a loss to them earlier this season, which to this point has been their only loss so far.
Yep.
They're going to be at home. The potential of getting Josiah King back certainly helps. And the track record of Fishers at home has been incredible. And that has been against some high-quality opponents. So we'll look for the Freight to keep their season rolling at home against a very respectable Green Bay side. My other leg that I did here, I ended up doing Quad City at that minus 13.5 number.
Okay.
So
I don't hate it.
Yeah, it pretty much came down to the bet that I kind of hated the least, and also blended in that don't overthink it type of kind of blanket logic behind it. Because like Iowa, yeah, we've seen bits and spurts from them where, you know, on a given play they have looked reasonably solid.
Yeah.
But across a full 60-minute span, we just haven't seen it as competitive as we'd all like to see it to be. And their closest loss was 11 points where they got a garbage time touchdown with like 15 seconds left, which I don't think I need to remind you of that one. But
yeah, like I said, that was going to be my question. I was like, I think just doing like a quick scan over their schedule. I was like, I don't know if they've really covered the 2 touchdowns or anything.
They only had that one in that home game against Green Bay. Every other one of the losses has been by at least 20 or 21 points.
Yeah. So and with them dedicating,
it's been rough.
And with them dedicating more to the run, if you throw out the over under or anything, if you just kind of think in your head, like what's more liable to happen? Quad City wins by 14 or more, throwing the ball and having Kevon Rudd and Kean Williams do what they do, or do you have Iowa covering that? The only way I see that is if there's, like you said, garbage time touchdowns, or
it's going to be that goofy play with like 10 seconds left if it winds up becoming that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was I just thinking too? I thought I had a really good point with this one. Oh, the fact that this is minus 13.5 versus minus 14.5 does matter big time for me,
Yes.
because you're on the better side of that key number of 14.
Yep.
Which certainly helps out a ton as well.
Yep.
And the last one to wrap it up is Arizona Vegas game, where I'm going to apply similar logic to the one that you've put on San Diego Tulsa.
Mhm.
And I'm going to go points here
Okay.
all the way.
Okay.
Over 93.5. And look, I've said it once, I've said it again. My over-under betting is suddenly terrible now. But I feel like this one has a solid case, even at the highest number of the week. The offenses for Arizona and Vegas, at their best, are both among the league's elite. Vegas right now, number one in offensive efficiency, like 52 points per 10 possessions. Arizona's right there, like 47 points per 10 possessions. You add those two up, you're already at 100, basically. And you're assuming that logic behind, each team's going to get 10 possessions at the ball.
Right.
So the way that this goes under is if it suddenly turns into like that, more well-rounded, like playoff-esque type of game,
Right.
similar to what we saw in the 2024 postseason.
Yeah.
But if you take that game out from the season series, believe it or not, every other one of those 6 aforementioned matchups has made it to at least 88 points.
Yeah.
So whether or not you want to view that or maybe a touchdown less as your floor for this game, all you really need is both offenses to do their thing, continue to trade punches. Maybe we get a game script similar to Arizona's last game against Tulsa, and we make this with relative ease. But I do trust the offenses here to do their thing, and we'll see if our parlay here does get to Sunday, if that'll be the play of deliverance for me. Because for those who have read my series, parlays have not been easy to come by.
Now, I do want to pick your brain on that one because you're taking the over, and that's fine. But did you put into any like weight or consideration like the teams that Vegas has played in the last couple of weeks? They've played New Mexico, they've played San Antonio, they played Jacksonville, and that score looks closer, but they did kind of beat them a little bit. And then before that, it was Tucson. So it's like I wouldn't say that they're playing the cream of the crop before they get to this Arizona game. It's not to take anything away from Vegas. Arizona has played, San Antonio and Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona was beating Arizona up until the third quarter. So it's like I can see a scenario where the under hits, but I won't wish evil on you. Let's go with points, because some of these games, whether it's Orlando or Tulsa, or whether it's San Diego, Quad City, or even Tulsa or Arizona, you don't expect some of these games to go as high scoring as they have, and who knows? So yeah, this could be a thing where both teams are exploiting the defenses, and Randolph goes off and Arlen Bruce goes off again, and you never know. So
yeah, and that's a perfectly fair point to bring up as well. It does fall into kind of like that catch-22 situation as well, though,
right,
where it's like you're not really in charge of the schedule that you get.
right.
So you can really only plan the hand that you're dealt. And
Yeah.
the way that Vegas has played it, they've played it to dang near perfection in terms of offensive efficiency. Will Arizona offer a stiff test for that? Probably so.
Right.
But again, you could make the same case from Arizona. But I think this is a matchup where historically we've seen these two teams battle it out, and we basically get the very best version of these teams when they're on the same field.
Right.
And in this case, let's hope it leads to some pretty good offense. Both teams to score 50 plus would be a nice little prop bet that I would be tempted to take as well, should one exist. But yeah, this particular series is a plus 461. So $10 would win about 56 and a little bit of pocket change there as well. So if you like that, Freight on the money line, Quad City on the spread, Arizona Vegas over, you've got yourself a nice little play to follow along throughout the course of week 8 with sweats from start to finish. All right. That is a lot of ground that we covered, my friend. But I would say that it is a job well done
Mm-hmm.
and a good way to wrap up another fine edition of Wager Wednesday. Any final thoughts from you before we close things out?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think, it's like I said in our little group chat, how great would it be if we just won all of our bets? That'd be pretty fun. I mean, we'll have to take a look at Trey's, obviously, but
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything for us that's necessarily conflicting. I don't think where you've got one money line and I've got the other. I think both of our bets at least kind of either go hand in hand or they're like adjacent to each other. We're either squad riding on a couple or it's like I'm taking the over while you're taking a spread. So it's like I don't think they coincide. So maybe Trey's got something different and that's fine. But I mean, it's okay if he loses his bets as long as we win ours. So that's all I really have to say.
Hey, we're the triumvirate. We
I
don't
know.
we don't
I know.
spread ill well here.
No, no, no. But I'm
And you
saying
of all people have taught me about the value of positive vibes. So,
oh, for sure. Like I said, I'm just poking fun, but it's like, again,
of course.
if there's someone that has the spread as the favorite and someone has that as the underdog, and you're like, well, someone's going to win that. I mean, I think we had one like that last week too. So I'm like,
Oh, I mean, we've had a healthy amount of those
oh yeah.
so
So,
far this year. I have been on the bad end of the majority of those. But look, I've won some and I've almost won others.
well, I mean, we had the over under on Orlando and Green Bay, and that thing hit the over so quick in the third quarter. I'm like, yeah, it's not. Yeah, well, I'm done. I mean, that was a donation to a charity, so I get it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Cody, for hopping on.
Yep.
Appreciate your time. Love what you're doing over on your channel as well.
Always a
So, for
pleasure.
those of you new to Cody, his channel is In the Alley. Comprehensive previews of all the teams, games, recaps, whole 9 yards or 50, depending upon your viewpoint. So, go definitely check him out. Give him a follow. He's over on X as well. Give him some love there. And let's grow the game together. So,
Let's do
thanks
it.
again, Cody, for your time. And we'll touch base soon.
I appreciate it, man.
You got it. All right, that's going to be the wrap on the night for us, folks. For those of you who are placing bets on this week's action, I want to wish you the very best of luck. I'll see you at the cashier. Have a great night.